Welcome to Riverbend Talent on WBGZ. Brought to you by the Halpin Music Company.
Riverbend Talent on the Big Z. Brought to you by the Halpin Music Company and by Mr. Matt Van Voorst from Macias Insurance. And man, Pigpen, totally pumped. Totally pumped tonight.
Oh, yeah. We've got an old friend of mine I haven't seen for a few years, Mr. Pat Liston. How you doing, Pat?
I'm doing well. Your hair's grown since the last time I saw you.
I don't know if it has. It never stops growing. It's crazy.
I understand. At least I can grow it. That's why I do.
Right. I'll keep doing it till it won't grow anymore.
There you go.
Well, Mama's Pride, they had some hair, especially Danny.
Oh, yeah.
Danny had to make some black guys jealous with that afro.
He really actually did in high school. The brothers used to get upset with him because they used to call it a natural. It was not a natural. It was a terrible process they'd have to go through to get their hair like that. And Danny, it was just pick, done, and they just hated him for that, And all the sisters thought he was the stuff, because of that dude.
You guys grew up in Dogtown, is that right?
Danny and I did.
Yeah, Danny.
Matt grew up near Clifton Park, which is not far from Dogtown. So we were all South St. Louis. Me and Max and Danny were all South St. Louis.
Nice. Now, Danny is Pat Liston's brother, Danny Liston. They are the Mama's Pride. Their mama had a lot of pride.
Yes,
and you guys, I can remember you talking about playing with African Americans in the early days, and you were a landlady just not being too thrilled with all that action. We were talking about Danny picking out his hair. It kind of reminded me of that.
Oh yeah, no, she was Irish. I mean, she was from Ireland, and she there's no nice way of saying it. She was a racist, and she would it was her apartment, and she would just come up randomly sometimes just to see what we were, Mom would be at work, see if we were behaving, and it's like, this is our apartment. Get out of here. Well, 4 brothers and one of his girlfriends came by one day to work on some stuff with me. And she heard, they were like doing steps and stuff. And they were, they were like a 4 front guys, So they're doing steps and I'm playing, they're showing me the songs. Well, I kind of heard her coming up the steps. Well, she'd just come on in. And she opened that door and saw these 4 brothers sitting there, or standing there looking at her. You'd have thought she saw the devil. Oh, she freaked out. Jesus, Mary and Joseph, she's crossing herself. And she was an old woman. She had this gown, she pulled it, and I'm like, I think you're safe. I don't think these brothers that really care about you. And she freaks out and runs downstairs, and the brothers are freaking out, like, oh, maybe we should leave. Well, she came back up to tell me something, and she walks in the room and goes like this. These 4 brothers almost jumped off the floor because they thought she had gone down and got a gun. Well, I knew it wasn't the case. They ran out of the room. We're on the 2nd floor. They're like running down the steps. One of them even fell and like was bouncing and butt hitting the steps, bouncing down his head. And we're driving in, jumped in their Buick, and they're driving off. And they said, "We'll practice next week." And one of them out the window at our house,
Oh man!
But that
life in Dogtown.
Yes, indeed.
That R&B though, that would be the roots of Mama's Pride, and those horn lines were the guitar riffs.
Yes. See, and Danny was even more R&B, much more R&B than me. I mean, he was only at the time like 14 years old. And this band that I played with for a while, he actually played drum. We were supposed to go to Oklahoma to do 2 college things, and the drummer, I don't know if he got arrested or what, out into something. And Danny knew the songs. And we took Danny with us, and he did it at 14 years old, So Danny's hardcore R&B, But yeah, that was I played Gaslight Square. I mean, that was definitely where the roots were.
How'd you convince Mom to let you take Danny to an out-of-town
Yeah,
gig.
that wasn't easy. It really was. Rudy Coleman, he's passed away now, but Silver Cloud guys played in town. Rudy was his son. Rudy was a bass player for the Soulful Illusions that I played with, and Rudy could charm the scales off a snake. I mean, he was a great guy. And he called my mom, and he said, "Miss Liston, I swear, he'll be in my care. He'll be in my room. We won't let him go anywhere. I know he's young." I mean, he just said all the things Mom wanted to hear. But Mom was a musician. So in her heart of hearts, she wanted to let him go, but she wanted the security of knowing that he'd be okay.
Yeah.
So,
and having a musician for a mother has got to help.
Oh, absolutely. I hear these musicians that talk about their parents saying, when are you going to get a real job? My mom thought that there was no job more real than doing music. So that was an asset.
Big time. Yeah. So you guys, you went out to L.A. though after jamming around the South Side and everything. You headed in '69, was it, out to L.A. or out to the West Coast there?
Yeah, June of '69.
And you were before Mama's Pride started. You were out there working in the music business, right?
I went out, yeah, and I did like some odd jobs and stuff to eat, but then I found a group called Bobby and the Innkeepers. And we played all over. We played Vegas. We played all over the place, and it was Bobby was the leader, and he was black, and he was a keyboard player, and we had a sax player that was an Indian, and two Mexican, a trumpet and drummer. We were Mexican, and then the bass player Lane was white as rice. He was from Colorado, So we were quite a diversified band, And I even played Anchorage, Alaska with those guys.
But call that backup band the UN.
Exactly. Then I went with a group called Friends and Brothers they were all Hispanic and great band, And I was with them all the way until I decided to quit and put my own band together, which ended up being Mama's Pride.
Now, at some point while you were out there, I think you told the story as you introduced Blue Mist in one of your videos about the bus that you're talking about in that song, the bus to Eagle Rock, and you were under some pressure to write some songs or something like that?
I had gotten signed by a record company called Oak Records. They were right on Sunset Boulevard, and I didn't really know what that entailed. They were giving me like $100 a week to be a writer, and the one guy, Chuck Thorpe, was like the guy in charge of that. We ended up being best friends, but at the time I didn't know him that well, so he was a little intimidating, and he said, we need 3 songs next week. And I just, looked at him like deer in the headlights, like, okay, from where? He goes, from you. And I said, oh, dude, it was almost one of those things where it's like, oh, dude, I write when I'm inspired. He was almost bald, and he went, well, maybe we won't be inspired to pay you next week. Oh, well, okay, 3? He goes, yeah. So I went home, and I waited till like the night before or right at the last dog. I eked out 2 songs. I could not get a third one to save my life, and went into the office and told him, I said, I got 2 songs. I don't have 3. He said, well, they better be 2 songs worth 3. And the first one was a song I wrote called Kathy, and it was a nice, bouncy little number. He really enjoyed it. He goes, this next one better be good. And I said, well, it's all I got either way, and it was Blue Mist. And he liked it, but I don't know that they were all that like crazy about it. They liked the other one better, And then I went into the studio with a guy named Jerry Cole or something, who was also one of the guys in the studio, guys I told you about, the Wrecking Crew. And he had already figured in his head how this song was going to go, and it was like a Ramsey Lewis thing. It was like a doom da doom da ba ba doom da. It was like I'm in with the in crowd or something, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing to my song? I still have a recording of that, and my brother, that goofball, he likes it. But we did not. But I think that's why the president, Ray Ruff, I think that's why he didn't like it, because I wouldn't have liked it either. So I did the album, and on that album was the song Kathy was the name of the other song, and but Blue Mist wasn't, and I didn't record Blue Mist until Mama's Pride.
What a great time to be in California, though, as far as history and what was going on in Laurel Canyon and with the wrecking
So,
crew. And
well, see, I'm friends with Richie Furay now, and we talk about he and Stills and Young were Buffalo Springfield were living not more than 20 minutes from where I was at the same time.
yeah,
You know, and he kind of like, because Richie's a really, really nice guy. And he said, that's a trip. He said, it's a shame we didn't get together. I'm thinking, yeah, really. So what a super group that was with those three guys.
so Laurel Canyon was kind of separated from like a scene that was like more LA scene, right?
Oh,
San
yeah.
Francisco.
Oh, no, yeah. Yeah, Laurel Canyon was, and we used to go up there a lot. That's the other thing I told Richie. I said, we used to drive up there all the time because it was just cool, you know. But that's where like the cool people live. Joni Mitchell was up there and all these people, you know. So it was like, we dug going up there.
If you would have met Richie back then, it could have ended up Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Liston.
Yeah.
Could have been. I remember telling my brother, I said, I don't think my songs were as good as theirs. And then working with some of these guys when they're doing their songs solo without the production, I'm like, oh, well, a big part of this song is production, which is with a lot of songs, you know. And I thought, okay, my stuff might have been okay, you know. So
Right. You bust anybody down to just an acoustic, and it loses some of the luster of the album usually.
and if you bust them down to the acoustic and the song's really good, then the song's really good. You know, then the production and all that, that's easy.
If you can strip a song down to bare bones and it's good, then it's a good song.
Then
If you
it's a
can
good
do it in 10 different genres and it's a good song, it's a good song. If it's still a good song 100 years from now,
That's
if
why
it's still a good song in 100 years, it's a great song.
That's what Blue Mist has done so well, and even young people that hear it like it, because it's a good song, and if it's a good song, a production or the way you produce it could be dated, but the song itself, no, you just update the production, you know.
Right. Time for a reload.
So that era, the late 60s into the early 70s, that's a total change in music out there too, going from like the Beach Boys to psychedelic music, I guess, really started hitting hard about the time you were out there.
Yeah. Oh no, things definitely started changing. I mean, I was out there at a ripe time. I have no regrets, but I do sometimes wish that I could have connected to that scene quicker when I went out there, because it was happening with a vengeance when I first went out there. I mean, like I said, Buffalo Springfield were hitting the whiskey real hard. And I was they had a band. I mean, they were Neil Young and Stephen Stills and Richie Furay were extremely talented, but it was a band. And so there was the inertia that they could bring, you know, whereas I was a solo guy, you know, I didn't have a band. I was just trying to find my path, you know. And so, it was harder for me, you know, and then I joined bands that were more like pop top 40 bands. And you get your chops tight, you know, but I did hit a point where I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. I went back to St. Louis for Christmas of 74, or actually it was January 75, because I always went after Christmas because the band I was with worked a lot during the holidays. And I heard Max and Danny playing. And I thought, and they're doing like Grand Funk and Blood Rock and all this other stuff. We're doing, you know, the Friends of Distinction and things like that, you know. It was great R&B stuff, but it was real different from what they were doing. And it was like, oh, dude, this is what I want to do. Yeah. And I wanted to really hit the harmonies hard and everything. So that's why I came back. You know, I told them before I left, I said, we got to do this, you know. And
I think that really shows how much KC meant to St. Louis, what you're talking about there. You're out in California, but the music's being played on the radio here is that style of music that ended up being the next thing.
Oh, the music was much better here.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that the pop music was bad. It wasn't. It was great music. But as far as that edgy stuff like that, you didn't hear that in California. I mean, you did, but it was not like it was here.
Right. And so good to
Max and Danny knew this stuff really well, and they kind of turned me on to it.
Right.
I didn't know, you know.
That's
but
really
I did a lot of R&B. and Max was rock and roll blues, and Danny was R&B, and we had all this mixture. And I was really curious in my mind. I always say, I wish I had a what if machine. Just to see what if, because we had this combination of styles. Because Mama's Pride was not Southern rock at all, at all. We were like R&B rock. And the stuff we did a lot of Tower of Power. We did stuff like that. I mean, it was a real and tons of harmony, you know. I remember working with Charlie Daniels one time, and we had done Young and Free. And we never did that out live much. And we had worked it out, thought, let's do it in the concert one time. And Charlie came up after the show into the dressing room and said, hey, what was that song y'all did tonight you never did before? Well, I knew what he meant because we had never done that song. And so it's Young and Free. He goes, man, that's a good song. And I said, well, thanks, man. I mean, you know, I never really thought it would fit on the album. There's a whole nother story. And he said, mind me telling you something? I said, what? He says, y'all ain't Southern rock. I said, I know that, Charlie. He goes, and I don't mean that in a bad way. He said, y'all are more than that. He said, your vocals are like nothing I've ever heard. He said, that's where your power is. And I used to tell the guys that we can play all the hot licks in the world, but voices will always lay people out. Always.
Yep.
It's like the story of Ronnie Van Zant told one time when they opened up for the Eagles. That's how they got their big start. And they ended their set with Freebird. But they weren't that well known, but still, the great song's a great song. And they killed it. And he said, as they're ending, he looks over and he sees the Eagles standing off stage. You never see the headliner standing off stage. They don't give a damn. But they were, because they're smart. And they went into like a football huddle. And they came off, and Ronnie's manager, Alan Walden, who was our manager, said, man, let him follow that one. The Eagles walked out when it was their time with their guitars. They sat among guitar stands, walked to the microphones, and sang Seven Bridges Road. And Ronnie Van Zant, he looked at Alan and he went, Leonard who? It was done. I mean, you were the reigning king. So you hit those vocals and it was like people just went insane, you know.
Right.
Talk about when you got the record deal. What was that like for you guys, and how'd you go about getting that? Did the connections out in L.A. help you there, or how'd that happen?
No, oddly enough, we came to St. Louis and we played for a while, but I was really restless. It's like, I'm not doing this. I'm not just being the biggest band in St. Louis playing bars. Well, the Mississippi Nights was owned by a guy named Ellis Salem, and it was called the River Rat back in those days. And Ellis was from Louisville, Kentucky, and he knew a booking agent named Steve Cole down there. And he got me in touch with Steve Cole, and I called him, and he said he booked what they used to call the Chitlin Circuit, which was all the Southern clubs. So I said, book us now, immediately. So he started booking us, in Augusta, Georgia, and Athens, Georgia, and places in Kentucky and Tennessee. And it was great. And while we were at River Rat in St. Louis, a band came through. They had just gotten a record deal, and the road manager heard us. And the band had been playing a lot, so they weren't going to do a sound check. They were tired. And their road manager, David, called them up and said, boys, you better get your ass down here and do a sound check, because there's an opening act that's going to fry your ass if you don't. And so they said, okay. And they came down, and we met them. We became friends. It was the Outlaws. And they had just gotten their record deal. And so we go down south and start playing. And we're in Augusta, Georgia, a place called the Whooping Post. Everything in the South had something to do with the damn Allman Brothers, And it was a neat club. And Steve Cole, the booking agent, came in one night, and he wanted to sign us to an exclusive deal. And we're talking. It's on a break. And he looks over and he goes, oh, hell, never mind. What? He goes, you ain't going to sign with me now. I said, why? What are you talking about? He said, he just walked in, and I looked over and I saw David Cloud, the road manager from the Outlaws. I said, oh, David Cloud? He goes, no, the other one. I said, no, I don't know who that is. He said, that's Alan Walden. That's Phil Walden's brother. He manages Lynyrd Skynrd and the Outlaws. He said, he is so going to sign you guys tonight. And I just laughed. You know, we played that night, and Alan signed us.
Nice.
And Alan was the one that got us to deal with Atlantic Records. He had sent copy. We had gone to Muscle Shoals to do demos, and he sent a copy of that demo to everybody in New York except Atlantic, because they didn't want Skynrd, they didn't want the Outlaws. So he thought, well, what the hell's the point? They're not going to want them either. Well, this superstitious business, when they found out that they didn't get a copy, now they wanted a copy, you know. So Alan had his lawyer up there bring them a copy. And the following week, we were playing in Tampa, Florida. Jerry Greenberg, president of Atlantic, Anita Wexler, who was part of the promotional department, their head of A&R, Ahmet Erdogan, who was God, all flew down to Florida to see us that night. And Ahmet said, I want to sign this. I want to sign you now. And I said, well, we want you to sign us in St. Louis, because that's where we're from. And our manager almost had a heart attack. He said, what do you say? You know, what are you, crazy? And Ahmet was such a cool guy. He had this gruff voice. He said, I ain't been to St. Louis in a while. Yeah, let's do it in St. Louis, you know. And I told my manager, I said, calm down, will you? The guy, he's just a regular guy. But Ahmet was the first one that said something about that song, that old St. Louis song. He goes, them horn riffs you're doing on guitar. I said, you're absolutely right. Because me and Max and Danny, this is our first band we've ever been with that didn't have horns. So we just did it with guitars. And he just thought that was so cool. You know, Ahmet was a great guy.
Nice.
It definitely defined your sound for sure, and put you guys, along with the harmonies that you guys did, you put those two things together, and then a little rock and roll, and man, what an awesome sound.
And it just sort of happened. It's not like we went, oh, well, what we could do is, we didn't know. We couldn't find our ass with both hands, and we were just playing music and doing it the best we knew how. And Mama's Pride, the guys were extremely creative. You know, I remember after I left the band going in the studio with other people, and I remember this one bass player, he was a great bass player, and he said, what do you want me to play? And I looked at him, I said, bass. He goes, what do you want me to play? He said, usually they have a charts, they tell us what. I said, and I thought, oh my God, really? Because Mama's Pride just knew. Bass players, Dickie and Joe Turek, even Gary Bourgeois, our first one, they just knew what to do. And Max was the master. Max could, I don't care what the song was. It could be rock and roll, it could be pop, it could be anything. He knew just the right thing to do to it, you know. And Danny was the greatest rhythm guitar player, and he was also a damn good lead guitar player. But his rhythm was so good, Kevin used to say, I'd rather play with Danny than most bass players, because he just had such a solid funk groove.
So you
had see what we'd have become, you know, had because Ronnie Van Zant was going to produce our third album, and had that happened, had the plane not gone down, everything would have been. That's that what if machine again, you know.
Yeah.
We recorded out in L.A., right? Those early albums, and didn't you stay at 461 Ocean Boulevard?
Well, 461 actually is in Miami.
Okay, Miami. That's right.
And that's where we did the first album.
Okay.
And 461 obviously is where Eric Clapton stayed. But when we stayed there, Nancy Colbert, wow, where did I pull that from? She owned the place, and she had a book. She wanted us to sign it. And I said, do you mind me looking at the book? She says, no, just hold it right here. She was real protective of the book. Well, the book had all the people's names in it that had stayed there. All four Beatles at different times. Zeppelin, Eagles, Rod Stewart. I mean, you name it, they'd stayed there. I had the master bedroom because I was the leader and I was getting that damn room. And I laid in that bed every night and almost couldn't sleep. I'm thinking, sweet Jesus, John Lennon slept here. Paul McCartney, George Harrison, all of them did their albums here, so they slept in the master bedroom. I'm sleeping where all these icons slept. I mean, if we were working 16 hours a day in the studio, if we'd have been going out to bars hitting on chicks, all that is, you want to go see the bed that this guy slept in? I mean, it was like, it would have been the biggest come on line in the world, you know. But I was blown away. And and we had girls knocking on the door all the time. Is Eric here? I'm like, do you really think Eric would put his home address on an album cover? You know.
Yeah.
But for a bunch of guys from South St. Louis, it was a mind blower. And in the studio, we had so many celebrities come in while we were there because our producer was Arif Mardin, who was arguably the biggest producer in the world at the time. Mm. And so they were coming in to see him. I knew they were coming to see us. He was still there, you know.
Right.
Eric Clapton came in and he had Patty Boyd with him. She was a bigger thrill to see than him, you know. Wow, this is Harrison's wife, you know. And the one band came in, and the Bee Gees came in, and Dave Mason came in. I mean, it was just and as far as industry, what's his name? It'll come to me. The producer. Oh my God.
Tom Dowd.
Tom Dowd. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
He came in, and I played pinball with Tom Dowd in the lobby. I had a young guy here in St. Louis, Charlie Serpa, who's a sax player, sweet kid. And I call him kid respectively because he's a lot younger than me. But when I told him I played pinball with Tom Dowd, he like had a heart attack. He's like, oh my God. Yeah. Tom was such a nice guy. He took the whole band and road crew out for dinner one night at a nice place and paid for the big thing because he was just that kind of guy.
Nice.
Yeah. No, it was. We did the second album in Los Angeles, but actually we did the second album twice. The first time we did it in Muscle Shoals, and I thought it was a great recording. Atlantic, they loved it, they loved it, they loved it, they loved it, and somebody up toward the top said, I don't like this. And they decided they wanted us to do it in LA. But
did you get to jam with the Swampers when you were at Muscle Shoals?
Some of them came in, yeah. Some of the Swampers came in, yeah. We played cards with them. What's that damn Tonk? There's an old card game the brothers would play called Tonk. And some of the Swampers that came in and we played Tonk with them, you know. So, no, it was very cool to be in Muscle Shoals. And David Johnson did all that at Broadway Sound. And it was a great time. David was great, and he was a damn good producer. I don't know why they didn't like what we did, because probably the second album in LA was a good album, but it was a little slicker. And now the second album had Stranger to Me Now on it, and I hadn't written that yet when we were in Muscle Shoals, so it wouldn't have been on there. But it is what it is, you know, so.
I'd like to hear the Muscle Shoals version. That's Uptown and Lowdown we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to.
Any of those recordings, our manager was very just real protective of that. You know, he didn't want me to have those, and so we've heard them, but that's as far as we got with them. I've never gone beyond that.
I bet they're a little more slinky and greasy than the LA.
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah, the Muscle Shoals tapes that we did. And we had 2 or 3 other songs that we didn't do on the LA version, and they were just raw. They were raw. In a lot of ways, I think David Johnson captured us more the way we really were.
Yeah.
Arif Mardin was a genius, brilliant man, but he did not capture us. He was very slick. And then Jim Mason did the second album, and Jim was great. He did Poco, he did, who else did he? Firefall. I mean, he did some great stuff. But it still ended up being a little bit slick. And Mama's Pride was anything but that, you know. And it just, I shot pinball with Bob Seger one night till 4 a.m, and he had talked about that. This was right before they did the live album. And he had played at a bar with us in Louisville, Kentucky. And I told him I'd heard his recordings, and I had enough beer in me. I said, I didn't really care for him that much, but to hear you live blew me away. And he goes, well, right now we're thinking about doing a live album, see if that does any good. Yeah, it did okay.
It did all right.
But another one. Most of the people I've met in the business were super, super nice people.
Yeah.
Well, you became really good friends at that time with Lynyrd Skynrd and especially Ronnie Van Zant. You were
Yeah.
about to talk about that earlier, and he was going to produce that
Yeah.
album when the tragedy strike, and that really hit you guys hard, right? As hard as it.
Oh man, it was our big break. I mean, we had played, I think it was Springfield, Missouri with him, opened up, and he and I talked, and then he came to the dressing room, and all of us talked, and he was into it, loved our vocal. I mean, he was one of the ones that said, man, you guys have vocals like nobody I've ever heard in my life. He said, we have to really enhance this. And he was into it, head, hands, and feet, and he said, I want you and your brother with me 24/7 because you're the writers. And I said, good, can we start opening for you now? And he goes, well, he said, we have a band that's supposed to open the next 8-10 dates with us, and I don't want to cancel them. I said, well, no, don't do that. He was a stand-up guy.
Right.
But I often say, had he taken us right then, he said he wanted Danny and I with him 24/7, which would have been the plane. So we'd have been on that plane. There's absolutely no doubt we'd have been on that plane.
Wow.
So things that happen are meant to be, you know, and it was a terrible, we were in a bar called the Waterhouse in Dogtown on the night it happened, and we were celebrating, ironically, because we knew Ronnie was going to produce it. We were going to get a Skynrd worldwide tour, arguably the biggest band in the world at the time. We were going to be stars. There's no way we could have missed, short of all being assassinated at the same time. We were not going to miss. And we were celebrating, and something came on the news. And all of a sudden, we looked up, I hushed everybody, and they said, Lynyrd Skynyrd plane went down. And I remember thinking, not Ronnie, not Ronnie, not Ronnie. And the first face that came up, Ronnie Van Zant, lead singer. And I was like, none of us said anything. Just one at a time, each guy got up and walked out because we knew it was over. Atlantic dropped us a week later.
Yeah.
The only thing that almost resurrected us was Greg, when we got with Greg Allman, you know. And even that, he got back with the Allman Brothers because we were too good. And Bill Walden freaked out. And it's like, damn, you know.
Hey, Pigpen, we need to take a quick break here, and so we can come back and talk about what Pat's been doing during this quarantine. And I know he plays a lot around town. We always talk about him every weekend. He's playing somewhere, and we talk about how fortunate we are in this area to have that type of music where, hey, we can go out and see Pat Liston any weekend we want, you know. So let's talk about that when we come back. You're listening to Riverbend Talent on the Big Z, brought to you by the Halpin Music Company and by Mr. Matt Van Voorst of Macias Insurance. More Riverbend Talent on the Big Z. I'm Dennis Pigpen's here, and Mr. Pat Liston joining us tonight on Riverbend Talent, brought to you by the Halpin Music Company and by Mr. Matt Van Voorst of Macias Insurance. And Pat, just an amazing music scene we have here in our area. I know you stay pretty busy when the bars are open.
No, I do. My wife books me. Bless her heart, we've been together about 14 years, and she's head, hands, and feet into it, you know, and keeps me going, you know. And we have a little boy. He's going to be 13. You know, I always tell people I got life in rewind, you know, because I got grown kids, you know. I got kids probably as old as Pigpen, you know. And now I got this 13-year-old, you know. But he's playing, and he plays keyboards. He plays guitar. He's been into. He found my Gibson ES335, and he's into AC/DC. So he's jamming. So it keeps me young.
That's Thomas, right? Liston.
Thomas, yeah, Thomas.
I've seen he helped out with your YouTube channel.
Yes, he did. Yes.
Does Thomas also play violin?
He does.
He bought something recently at our sponsor, helping for him.
He goes to a local Lutheran school here, and it's required. It's not an option. Music is required, violin is required, and I think that's great. You know, it's a great school.
You go to Halpin Music and pick him something up for his violin, maybe?
I did. They had moved since the last time I was there, and I went to their old location. I'm like, where the hell did the store go? You know. Well, then I called somebody, and they said, no, you knucklehead. They moved a couple of years ago. So I found him, and I think it was a bow. He needed a new bow. It was either a bow or a violin case. He needed something. And I knew Allman would have it, you know, because they have everything, you know. But no, and they were really cool, you know. And I laughed and told them, they said the same thing. We've not been there for a couple of years. I said, well, I don't want much, you know. So,
So yeah, if the people are enjoying listening to the history of Mama's Pride and Pat Liston, you put it all in written form, right? You've got a book that kind of touches on it.
I did. It took me about 3 years to write this book. Well, somebody said, when are you going to write another one? I said, never. This took too long. But it's a good book. I was teasing Richie Furay one time because he gave me his book, I gave him mine. And mine's a hardback. It's a bigger book. It's glossy, you know. And he said, wow, I feel bad. Mine's only softback. I said, well, apparently my life was more interesting than yours. And he laughed, because nothing could be further from the truth.
Right.
But it's called 13 Notes to Life. And that's from an older man that I met. I knew, Mr. Waterhouse. The place that I said we were in a bar when we heard about Ronnie dying was the Waterhouse. And Mr. Waterhouse was Billy's dad. Billy owned the place. And he could play keyboards. He was an electrician, but he was a neat guy. And he was sitting at the bar one night, and I said, hey, Mr. Waterhouse, how you doing? You know, and we're drinking a beer together. And he's sitting there, and he's got this real pensive look on his face. I said, what are you thinking about, Mr. Waterhouse? You know what, Pat? If you include the octave, we only have 13 notes on the piano. And everything in those 13 notes has been written from Bach to the Beatles. Well, I had gone to music college. You know, I'm the big rock star. And I went, oh my God, I had never thought about that. And I thought, he's right. From C to C, 13 notes, everything has been written. And it was a mind blower. So I had to use that because my wife was the one that said, when I was thinking of a title, there was some title I was using, but it made it sound like I was done, you know. She goes, no, you need Mr. Waterhouse, what he said about those 13 notes, you need to tie that in. So that's when I said it's going to be called 13 Notes to Life.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about music. You know, it's, you know, all these guys write these books, you know, the drugs and all the orgies and all. Who gives a damn about all that? It's about the music. That's what people signed on for. I'm sure they don't care what kind of crazy, wild parties you go to. They want to hear what you're doing. They want to hear the backstory. People love stories. They want to hear the backstory of it. Like what I told you guys about Blue Mist and all those backstories. People love that stuff. That's what I tried to keep this book. And now the new books, you can, in the old days, you used to have all the pages in the middle because it was a different kind of paper. Well, nowadays, I used 80-pound high-gloss paper, so I can put pictures anywhere. So it's got a ton of pictures. So it's a fun book, and I've had people get the book that didn't know who I was, that somebody gave it to them, and they were like, I love this book, and they have no clue who I am. So I thought, well, that's a real good sign, you know. I feel like I don't even know who I am. So, but so yeah,
where can people find the book?
If you go, you get at my gigs, which are not happening right now, but I have a website, patliston.com. And you just go to that and click store, and it's got all my CDs and the book as well.
Yeah,
that's cool, man.
You've got several solo CDs as well, and so you took a little break though between like 82 and 94, and raised a family, and then kind of came back. And what brought you to our area? Why did you decide to come across the river?
My wife. When I met Dawn, she lives here, and we got together, and I fell in love with her, and I felt it would be a better relationship if I lived where she did, and so she lived over here on this side, and then we got married, and I've been over here ever since, live in a little town, you know, in Madison County, and it's cool. I love it. I always said I'd never leave the city. I was a city guy.
Yeah.
But ever since being here, if we hear a siren, the only sirens we hear is at 8 o'clock. It's a curfew siren. And if we hear a real siren, the world has come to an end. Yeah. Something serious is wrong because you don't even hear cars, much less a siren.
Much different than the city.
Yes, where you hear it every 20 minutes, right?
We hear a lot of guys talk about the fans, specifically in the Midwest, but really in the St. Louis area, some of the best music fans in the world because they really listen to the music and get into it.
Oh, yeah. Every guy I've ever talked to in the industry, I remember Leon Russell used to say, if you want to know if you got a good band or a good product, bring it to St. Louis. Because if they like it, they will like you forever. They never give up on you. It's not like California where you're big now and you're tomorrow, who cares? St. Louis will, if once they, Gypsy, once they tag on to you, man, it never dies. It never dies, you know? And that's the truth. And Shelley Grafman from Casey, I mean, he really loved our band, and he put it out there for us, you know? He gave us the format, and Shelley wasn't stupid. I mean, you had to be good, you know? But he liked the band, he put it out there, and I've pretty much made my living off of that ever since, because Casey still plays my stuff.
Isn't Blue Mist like the #1 requested song or something like that?
Yeah, it won the number. The year we got inducted into their Rock Hall of Fame, that same week they did a top 95 all-time requested songs, which I told somebody had to be Mark Close that kept records because all the rest of them were too high. You know, Mark was pretty straight, so he probably kept records. But John Stewart assured me that it was a real deal, you know. And Blue Mist was the #1 all-time requested song. And when you figure number 95 was Bell Bottom Blues, one of my favorite songs, that's saying something.
Yeah. That's hilarious because Mark never would get high with me. I try to get him to get high.
No. Mark is an accountant that decided to get into radio.
Yeah. So, yeah, right. But he knows but he knows so much about the music too, you know. But he's like a super straight guy.
I love listening to Mark on the radio. He is a natural. And the thing with Mark, you'll meet radio guys, and on air they're one way, and off air they're another way. They're not outgoing and all that stuff. There's several of them that are good friends of mine, but they're just different, you know, and that's okay. I know musicians like that. But Mark is Mark all the time.
Yeah.
Every time. I don't care if it's on the radio, off the radio, Mark is always Mark. And that I love that about him, you know.
Clever guy too, man. Radio Rich is like that too. Radio Rich is Radio Rich in his car or on behind a microphone.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
Always laid back. Always.
And knows everything about every band. I remember he came one night to hear us at the pageant, and he came upstairs. We were the dressing rooms that are upstairs, and Dickie was saying something. Our bass player, Dickie Stumble, and he was talking about some band or something. Who was the band? I said, "Well, if Rich Dalton was here, you'd be able to know." It was like clockwork. Here he comes around the corner, and Dickie went, "Rich, who was," and I don't even remember what it was, "who was blah, blah, blah," and Rich didn't even break us. He just went, boom, and said the band and kept walking. It was
okay. Great guys, man, great guys.
So a lot of guys that we talked to from your era talk about the first time they seen the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show and how much that got them into music. And I noticed you toured with Ringo. We haven't talked to anybody who actually met a Beatle. Did you meet Ringo?
Yes, and he could not have been nicer. Ringo did something that no headliner has ever done for us. He came into our dressing room and thanked us for doing a good job. This is the damn Beatle. This isn't just some guy. This is rock and roll royalty. This is rock and roll God. You know, we're in the dressing room. I mean, it was cool enough being on the show, and there were so many great stars. And I remember before it started, the limos started coming because they're all stars. Well, it was at Earth City, and I'm in the back outside, and I'm going to stand there because I want to see all these guys. And because most of them, now Timmy Schmidt was actually on our second album, so I kind of knew him. But each guy's walking by, and I'm saying hi, you know, Todd Rundgren, a different guy, Burton Cummings. Well, the last limo, I knew the last limo was going to be Ringo. And he was a lot shorter than I thought. You know, I knew he was short, but he was short. And he walked by, and it was like a dream. And he goes, "Hey, how's it going?" I was like, and I couldn't even utter words. It was Ringo. Well, then we do the show. And after the show, we go back to our dressing room. We're all excited. You know, we hadn't done a show. It was 92, so we had broke up. We did the show because of the Guard Your Heart CD that we did. And the door opens, and it's Ringo. This isn't the Ed Sullivan Show. This is our freaking dressing room, and this is Ringo.
Yeah.
And we're like, my guys are really quick-witted, but they were dumbfounded. He walks in and he goes, "Hey, mama's boys, how you doing?" And we're like, Max leaned over to me and goes, "We're changing the name." You know. And we didn't have anything. He said some really complimentary, you know, "Thanks for keeping the time right. The band's really good." And I'm thinking, this is Ringo Starr saying complimentary stuff to my band, you know. And then he goes, the only thing the guy said, he goes, "We're doing a show in Kansas City this Saturday. We have no opening act. Would you like to do it?" The whole band in one voice went, "Yes!" He goes, "Grand, we'll see you there." And he walked out, and we were just like, oh my God. The only thing that happened was Max's then, I don't know if his girlfriend or wife at the time, she said something about, "Hey, Beatle dude," and 5 hands clapped over her mouth. You know, it's like, well, when he leaves, she says, "Oh, get over it. He's no better than me." I said, "Oh, no, yes, he is. He's he's better than everybody. He's way better than you, better than me. No, you're wrong, you know."
He's no better than me.
Yeah, he is. I'm sorry, but yeah, he is.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome, man. Having Ringo just stroll in there.
Richie Furay told me one time that when he met Ringo, he said, well, he wasn't as nice. I said, well, you know what? But Richie's been in it a long time. And he said, it could have been a bad day. I said, true. I said, but here's the thing, Richie. You're a star. You are in the Rock Hall of Fame. You're from Buffalo Springfield and Poco and all this stuff. We weren't. To Ringo, we were on the low end of the pole, you know. And I think that's why he felt the need to come in to be encouraging and kind of lift us up, you know.
Yeah.
And I said that really goes to show that the guy's got a good heart. And Richie's an ex-pastor and everything. He's a Christian guy, so he's a cool guy. He says, "That's okay. I'll roll with that." I said, "I like that," you know.
Yeah. I want to talk about a couple of your songs and see if we get a story in here real quick. One of them I really enjoy is "I'm Not Done." Fitting for this time.
Oh, that's one of the newer ones, yeah.
Yeah.
In 2016, I played the Pageant with the Pat Liston Band. And I wanted to write a song to let people know, because we had already gotten the KSHE Rock Hall of Fame, and the Blue Mist was #1 and all. So I wanted to let people know that I wasn't done yet, you know, that I still got more to do, more to say, more to sing. And so I wrote this song, and I thought the best obvious title I could do is called "I'm Not Done," you know.
Yeah.
So I did it that night, and it went over really well. And I do it at my solo shows, and people love the song, and it's cool.
There's a line about not being in a tribute band or something like that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I can't. I'm terrible with remembering my lyrics when I'm on you know, when I have to. But I say something about I hope y'all don't misunderstand, but I ain't going to play in no tribute band.
Yeah.
Because I never understood the tribute thing. I understand the musicians, because most musicians, not all, but most musicians that do that have never been, what I call, been to the mountain.
Right.
So this is as close as they get to it. They make really good money. They only play for a concert set, and they do just the band they like. It's a great concept, you know. But the audience kind of plays dress up. You know, they kind of go, oh, yeah, you know, and it's not really the band, but they act like it is. And it's all like we're all just playing make-believe, you know. And it's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. It's like, if I have to go there, I'm done. Then I am done, you know.
I thought that was very fitting, considering the title you were going with "I'm Not Done," and that you're going on with your music as opposed to going backwards.
Yes. Yeah.
You'd already been offered backup gigs to the Allman Brothers, so
Yeah.
why be in
Well, and a lot of these bands, like was it Little River Band? There is not one guy, none. The only guy that's in Little River Band that's even remotely associated with them was a guitar roadie, who is now the leader of the band, because he's the closest connection you can get. But most of these bands have one, maybe two original members. And I get that. But if you have no original members, that's pretty bad,
The other one I wanted to ask about was "A Long Way from Neverland."
Yeah, I wrote that. And what's really funny is that I did that song for years. And one night at a bar or something, I got cognizant of my own lyric. And I went, wow, this is kind of a depressing song, But that's kind of what I meant, was that when I wrote it, it was like, you almost have to have a Peter Pan mentality to do this, to even start on this process, because it's 98% of the chances is you're never going to make it. But that 2% you live for. And so you have to be Peter Pan. You have to kind of believe in fairy tales, And this song I wrote when I was first starting to get back into it in the 90s. I had quit for years, and then I got back into it. And so I wrote this song, and it basically said, I'm a long way from Neverland, I'm not Peter Pan anymore, But I still believed,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different music industry, that's for sure. And you've seen all different sides of it throughout your career. In this show, we bring on all types of musicians, young and old, and we promote our local music scene. And one of the reasons we like to have guys like you on is people can kind of relate to your story and kind of dream along with you. And you have any advice for young guys that are starting out that might help them out?
Well, I mean, it's really hard because everything, like you say, everything's changed. I actually spoke at a music business class at SIUE every year. And I finally quit because I told the teacher, I said, these guys could tell me something, because I don't know what the hell's going on anymore. Everything's changed so much. I said, now, if you ever have a music history class, I'm your guy, But I don't know.
Hold on. I think you do have some advice for the young people, because I remember you telling a story. There's a conundrum with musicians about playing cover tunes makes you money, but everybody wants to write their own songs. And then club owners get mad when you play originals. But I remember you talking about, even when you were out doing regional and going on the road, managers would get mad if you guys sometimes played your own songs, but you had a remedy for that, right?
Yes. What we would do in the old days is, and I did this one night, I played with Three Dog Night down at Wild. And it was a thrill, because I loved Three Dog Night. This is back when Corey Wells was still alive. And so I'm doing my set. So I'm getting ready for the last song, which was going to be Blue Mist. So I tell this story. I said, when Mama's Pride was in California, we were told, as you said, don't play originals. And we'd say, okay, but we always did, But what we did was, and I talked to the guys in Kansas, did the same exact thing. We would say it was by a known artist. So I told the audience, when we did Blue Mist, I used to say, this is a new song by Three Dog Night. Well, one night the bar owner comes, it's one of those 6-night-a-week places we played for like 11 weeks, comes up to me, he goes, Pat, I'm having trouble finding that one song by Three Dog Night. And I'm like, what song? He goes, that one song you guys do. And I'm thinking, you don't do anything by Three Dog Night. And he goes, that one's on Blue Mist. And I went, oh. I said, Ray, that's not Three Dog Night. Well, who's it by? I want to get it. That's actually our song. I wrote that. He goes, you wrote that song? Man, what a great song. I said, thank you. He goes, no more. And Ray, God is my witness. That's the only one. Well, at this time we were doing like 5. He didn't know. He just kept doing them. He didn't know the difference. Three Dog Night, Danny Hutton and Corey, they were such professional showbiz guys. They were like on it all the time. They come out to their show and they're like giving a little background on their songs. I mean, they only had like 1 million hits. And the one song, I forget which one it was, might have been the Laura Nero song or something. And Danny says or Corey says, Danny, when did we do this song? What year was that? He goes, and Danny Hutton was so sharp. He goes, this was right after we did Blue Mist. And the crowd broke down, because he had been listening to me and worked it into the show because he was a pro and it was funny and he was a neat guy. So that was really cool. That after all those years, Three Dog Night gave me credit for putting my song out there.
That's great.
You have to believe in yourself, and if your original songs, if nothing else, don't even announce it. Just do it. And if it doesn't go over, well, then maybe it's not that good of a song. I mean, I had some guy tell me one time, I said, I've written some bad songs. I've never heard a bad song you wrote. I said, no, and you never will, because I don't play them.
Right.
Because
they don't make the cut.
Everybody writes bad songs. So if it's not good, then go to the next one. But a lot of times with a band, your own songs, people like them more, and they don't know why, because it's yours. So there's that ownership, and your energy is in it, and people pick up on that. I used to say there's 4 parts to a song. You have to write it, you have to record it, and you have to perform it. But the 4th one I can't do. That's receiving it. That's an audience, and the audience has an integral part in a song, and the way they receive a song and the way their energy level behind a song makes a big difference in the song. I'm going to do it better. I'm going to play it better. And I've had songs that actually evolve when I do them. They change a little bit from my live performance because of the way the audience responds. It's magic for all of us. We're all in it. It's not just, they say, oh, you can do this, you're so cool. No, you are an integral part of this. Believe it or not, you really are.
Well, we're going to have to end it right there, and a great place to end it. Thanks once again. PatListon.com is where you can find everything from Pat, and appreciate you being on the show and keeping us inspired knowing that Pat Liston plays in our town.
Oh, bless you, brother. Bless you.
Yeah, hey, good to catch up with you, brother.
Good to catch up with you. Keep growing that hair.
You too, man. You too. We'll have to talk again soon, my friend.
Absolutely.
Yep. Where can we find you? PatListon.com?
PatListon.com, yeah.
All right.